Hi there, everyone. So today I've got a different video for you. I'm just going to kind of talk and draw some things out. And today I'm going to talk about a subject that's coming up a lot at the moment. So this is generally with our larger customers who have a fairly mature data platform. The platform itself is very scalable, so it's been designed that you can add components and make them bigger, process as much data as you want to, and those good things. And you can add data sets and whatever you want to do. The actual technology platform is working well, but then people get to this point where the kind of team itself, the operational scale isn't there. So the ability to do deployments and be confident in them, the ability to scale out your team and those sorts of things. So we're now starting to talk about agile data platforms and how we can break those up into smaller components, how we can put testing in there, and those sorts of things to enable that operational scale, which is becoming ever more important. And most customers get to this level of maturity where suddenly they realize that that operationally they're not able to scale, but the platform could do much more, and that they could do more things more quickly if they were kind of set free to make more changes. So this is probably going to be the first video in a bit of a series where I'll talk you through some of this stuff. Today I'm going to be talking about performance testing. This again is a subject that comes up all the time. It's not really very easy to do this if you don't change your platform to suit it. So if you've got a centralized infra team who are deploying your data platform, you're not able to do this because you would have to raise a change request for them to deploy a bunch of stuff so that you could do the testing, and then you'd have to destroy it. It would be operationally very hard. If you have made the step to automated deployment and the infra team sits within your kind of DevOps team, as it were, and you've got that automated deployment, all code-based, this is very easy to do. So with that, I'll dive into some whiteboarding so that we can kind of talk through how this works and how we would actually set it up in a real environment. So I've got the various cameras and things recording, and hopefully you'll enjoy this. It's going to be a bit different. There's no demo here. This is just me talking through the concept. I might throw together some demos at some point, but I've just not had the time. So the initial configuration, let's imagine that we've got an existing pipeline, and don't know why that's on highlighter. So we've just got two data sources. We'll call them source 1 and source 2 for this. And then we're going to go through an ADF instance. We're going to use Databricks, which I am going to call ADB, Azure Databricks. So obviously this will work with other platforms, but internally this is how we refer to it. So it's easier if I kind of stick to the things that I'm used to saying. But don't worry too much if you're on some other platform. All of this will work exactly the same way. So then finally, we're going over to the sink, where we'll be writing out the data. So this is our production flow. This is actually in production already, and that's working and everybody's happy. So we know how long things take to process in this roughly. We can monitor it over time, but we want to know, will the changes that we're making in this pipeline or in this infrastructure have an impact on how quickly this runs in production? So what we're then going to do in our DevOps pipeline is we're going to deploy some new stuff. And we're going to deploy a new ADF, and we're going to deploy a new ADB, and we're going to write out to a new sink. And we're going to use the same production data sources. This is important. And the reason that this is important is because we're measuring directly the performance of one against the other. So we're going to do this deployment, and then this will be our QA environment, and tomorrow we're going to run with the exact sources that we always use, and we're going to process the same data at the same time, potentially, all of those good things. And then we can measure the time it takes to go from here to here. And that will be our baseline. And then we'll measure the time it takes to get from here to here. and that will be another baseline. Sorry, that will be the actual measurement that we compare. And if this one and this one are the same time, that means nothing's broken, nothing's slowed down, nobody's made any mistakes. If this one is faster, that means we've probably made some optimizations, or somebody's inadvertently deleted some of the code or something like that. If this one is slower, that might mean that we've added new features. So you would want to know that you're expecting it to be slower, and then that's still acceptable. But if it's slower and you weren't expecting it to be slower, you haven't added new features, you haven't added more processing, that means that something's wrong, in which case you do not deploy this into your production environment. And this is quite important because it allows you to have much more confidence when you deploy things into production environments. So you know that this is going to run at about the same speed. That's all good. That's one of the tests. We tick it off, and then we're much more confident with what happens next. Obviously, in your environment, you're also going to have Power BI. I say obviously, every customer that I have has this. But you're also going to have a QA team who use Power BI, and they might want to write a report against a new version of the data. If you're changing the schema or the model or something, they might want to be querying that. So I'm going to ignore the fact that there's a bunch of other stuff here, like a Synapse database. And we're just going to have a new version of the Power BI environment, and we're just going to repoint that at this. So this can also point off to other data sets elsewhere, but we're going to point the relevant part to this new version of the data set. So that means that we can have a completely different version of the data here. These guys are using it. The existing users are connecting back to the production version, and therefore everybody gets lots out of this. So not only can we use this for performance testing, we can use this same technique to just test out changes to the data. We can allow these people to have the same data processing every day with a new model, but they're working against the new model so they can create the report so that when this does go into production, they're ready for it. They've already done the work to convert the report to use that new model. Nothing breaks when you go into production. Everybody's happy. And then when we're finished with these tests, so if we're not using the Power BI stuff, then we can delete this immediately. Otherwise, we leave this processing every day until the Power BI team are happy, and then we'll deploy it to production. And all that happens then is we can delete this whole environment. That means we're no longer paying for it. And that's very, very nice for a cost perspective, but it also means that we can run multiple tests. And that's important for the performance testing. So, if we move into another version of we're testing something, we're not just comparing to production now. We might have an idea of, well, I want to know how big of a cluster I need to optimally run this. What's the fastest I can get this to run through? Or any of those kinds of questions. Or is it the cheapest way of running this? Because there's always the theory of if I have two nodes, it will finish twice as fast as one node. Or if the two nodes are twice the size, it will finish twice as fast. All of those kinds of good things. So what we're going to do then is we're going to have a ADF with a small Databricks cluster, DF, and a sink. And in this instance, the sink it's almost irrelevant to the thing. We're never going to use this data. All we're doing is processing it so that we can time how long this thing takes. So we'll also have another copy of the environment with, sorry, got that one wrong. So here we're going to double the number of nodes. So imagine for a moment that this is 2-node cluster, this is a 4-node cluster. I'm just drawing it the best way that I can kind of convey this. I've got a sink there, and these guys are writing out to there. And then I'll have another version of this. And in this instance, I'm just going to get a massive monster node just to see what happens. And as you can tell, I can experiment as much as I want with this, because that is an ARM template, that is an ARM template, that is an ARM template. The sources are already in, and each of these is going to take a certain amount of time to run. And the amount of time that it takes to run is what we're interested in here. We don't need these environments. We don't need the data out of them. We're not going to test them, but we can spin up 200 of these if we wanted to. And because it's an ARM template, we can put parameters in. So we can say, I want this many nodes. I want this type of machine. I want to test normal generic compute versus compute optimized, memory optimized, GPU, whatever you want to test. And we can throw these environments up. Yes, it will take 10 minutes to spin up the environment, then it will run the pipeline, then it will shut it all down and delete it. So each of these will deploy into its own resource group. At the end of the pipeline, so over here you have deploy, then we'll run the pipeline, and then we will have a destroy job in our DevOps pipeline. So as soon as this is finished, the system goes like this. Your Azure consumption goes right back to exactly what it was before. Production is still running, but now we've got a nice table that says which compute is cheapest, which compute is fastest. If we wanted to optimize just that job, we can change the cluster size to suit it. And this just gives you some really good telemetry about your environment that you can use going forwards. So that's all I have for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Put a comment in the section below just to say whether you like this format, whether you want to see more of it, if there's any other demos or any subjects that you want me to cover that I can talk to you about. And please do hit the subscribe and like button if you like the channel. There should be more content coming soon. I had a bit of a gap. So thanks for watching.